Hey everybody, ahead of today's video, a quick little message from me. Christmas, New Year, they are now a distant memory. 2025 is upon us and it is time to get out there and start doing car stuff again. And if you want to come and join me, I've got a whole bunch of stuff planned. In fact, this year it is my mission to do something social every single month. So coming soon in February, on the 12th, which is a Wednesday, I have my curry night. Following on from our success last year, this is an event in South Suffolk and it's going to be a buffet style event. If you want more information, please check the link in the description down below or the community page on my YouTube channel. Then further north at the Motorist, just between Leeds and York, I'm going to be hosting my famously fiendish quiz. So if you want to test your automotive grey cells and prove your superiority, then come and join us. I will be there all day on the Saturday taking part in their Valentine's social. And if you'd love to come to either of these events but for whatever reason you just can't, then don't worry, because to keep you all up to date, I now have a newsletter as well. So to sign up for that, please follow the link in the description down below, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Hello everybody. I think it's a very human thing that if you were to ask me what my favourite car is, I'd have a really difficult time working it out. My default answer is the Jaguar XJ220 for two reasons. First off, it was much better than I expected, and secondly, I hope that anybody who asks hasn't driven an XJ220, so they can't argue with me. But when it comes to the topic of my least favourite car, well, that is much easier. And a very strong contender for the top spot has to be the first generation Mercedes A45 in all of its many guises. That to me is a perfect storm of all that is wrong with modern cars. It was a near lethal combination of laggy engine with laggy gearbox, harsh ride, uncommunicative steering. It revelled in a symphony of pops and bangs designed to appeal to a 13-year-old, yet was priced to be affordable only by a 45-year-old executive. And it was also an early example of a car where inside they just thought, right, let's stick an iPad to the dash, shall we? And in that case, it was particularly egregious because it wasn't even a touchscreen. And so not only did I feel that it wasn't what I expected from a Mercedes, it was simply a bad car, full stop. But anybody and everybody who sampled it tells me that this second generation car is a whole different prospect and a much improved car. But is it? Well, I have come to the beautiful mountain principality of Andorra to find out. Just in case you're wondering what on earth it is that I'm doing in Andorra, well, I've been here for about a week, courtesy of a channel fan and all-round good guy Paul, whose daily driver is this very A45S 4MATIC Plus. What a mouthful that is. What then is a Mercedes-Benz AMG A45S 4MATIC Plus? As you already know, it is the second version of the A45. Based on a platform that was introduced in 2018. The second gen of A45 then landed in 2019. It was also joined by the A35, a slightly lower powered variant that turned out to be rather popular, though that also had its fair share of problems, including a number of issues with its engine. And so today, most of the people that I know who owned one were very happy with the car, right up until the point that it broke in a fairly devastating and expensive fashion, and were then very happy to see the back of it. And that is exactly why you haven't even seen a review of one of those, let alone one of these. There is also a good chance that these are a much rarer car than their predecessor. Not only did they land in 2019, just in time for the world then a year later to fall apart, but if you wanted to buy one of these new, you would have to part with the princely sum of some £60,000. Yeah, that is a lot of money, but to justify it, this is a lot of car. So then, where to begin? Well, first off, I think I should point out that in Britain, and I believe some other markets too, we only ever got the A45S. We did not get the entry-level A45. The difference? A few pieces of trim and around 30 to 40 horsepower. That one made a similar amount to the old car, an already very impressive 380 horses. Remember, this is powered by a 2-litre 4-cylinder single turbo. The S though, that turned it up to 11, and this makes 420 horsepower and a staggering 369 pounds-feet of torque. That's 500 newton meters. Those are serious numbers. Enough even for it to beat the de facto class leader in the hyperhatch segment, the Audi RS3. In spite of the fact that car has another half-litre of capacity and a whole extra cylinder. Look more closely at the numbers though, and you will see that they are two very different power plants, not just on account of displacement and cylinder count, but the way they make their power. Mercedes say they have tuned this engine to feel more naturally aspirated. And so in an age where we're used to seeing peak torque figures at as low as 1500 to 2000 RPM, this doesn't make it until 5000 RPM, with peak power coming in at 6750. And this is, for me, a very, very exciting prospect. But as you'll see in a little bit, I think Mercedes might have been a touch disingenuous there. So then, what else is bespoke about this car? Though you'll see the A45 badging attached to a couple of other models in the Mercedes lineup, like the GL and the CL, today I'm just talking about this, the 5-door hatch. There is no 3-door of this generation, nor was there of the previous one. But that, to be honest, is in line with just about every other manufacturer today. 3-door hatches are sadly very few and far between. All A45s come with a chassis setup that is naturally bespoke to the model, and they have a few unique components too, including a few pieces of the suspension now made out of aluminium. The shell has also been strengthened and braced in a few different ways, all with the aim, of course, of making this a more rigid and then more sporty car. If you do go for the top-of-the-line 4MATIC Plus of the S, you'll also get things like standard fit adaptive dampers. But maybe most impressively and importantly to customers, I have to say that inside, Mercedes have really upped their game. Yes, this is an expensive car, but in here, it definitely feels much more worthy of the money than the old one did. So we've got plenty of leather, some nice yellow contrast stitching, accent lighting everywhere, this brushed aluminium, electric and memory adjustment with heating for both the driver and the passenger seat. You've got the modern Mercedes dual screen setup, which is far nicer than the old one. You can control it either using the trackpad down here, but if you want, it is also a touchscreen too. There are even controls on the steering wheel that I'm more used to seeing in the likes of the AMG GT. So on the left, we've got a button that can control the traction control or the automated start-stop. I believe in some earlier models that might have controlled the exhaust as well, but today you're not allowed. On the right, you've then got a nice wheel which you can use to choose your different driving modes, and you've got the likes of Comfort, Sport, Sport Plus, Race and Individual. Should things get a little sketchy, you've even got a slippery mode too, and both of these little controls have a screen integrated into them, which I think is really very cool. Feels really high-end, and when you do change between the modes, you feel a pronounced difference in the way the car works. The suspension firms up, the engine becomes a little more hyperactive, the car keener to change gears, does all that stuff you would want of it. I am also happy to see that this car still has plenty of real, proper physical control. So down here we've got ones for the HVAC, for the fan, the temperature, all that sort of stuff. You've even got a heads-up display, which is nice, bright, clear, and easy to read. I'm also fascinated by the fact that my speed here on the left is given to me not just in single kph increments, but 1/10 of kph increments. I'm doing 21.9 now. Oh, 21.8. You even have with the model a standard fit Burmester stereo, and yes, that is a bunch of cows with a couple of calves just casually walking up a mountain road. And that's the sort of thing you have to deal with around here, but that's fine because I love it up here. Though, as you can probably tell from the drive-bys, the weather is a little bit changeable, and when we did those yesterday, along with the statics, it wasn't anywhere near as nice as this. and that's one reason I didn't do my driving review. But today, the weather is much improved. The cloud cover was fairly low this morning, but now it has broken, giving me a near unobstructed view of this spectacular scenery. It is also very, very quiet up here. The temperature is beginning to rise, and so it is the perfect opportunity to put this car through its paces and ask that most important of all questions. Is this car really any different to its predecessor? Has it moved the game on, or is it simply the same thing in a slightly different outfit? Well, let's find out. In a word, yes, but in more words, it's complicated. There are definitely a lot of areas where this car is a marked improvement over its predecessor. First off, I like these seats a lot more. They are comfortable, they are quite supportive, and I recall the old ones being needlessly firm and uncomfortable. These are very nice. The car also has plenty of space in it. You get 4 adults in here, and the boot is a very good size for something in this segment too. I also really appreciate the standard fit for this model panoramic sunroof, which, though as a driver you don't really get much benefits from it, for those in the back it will be a real bonus. And so if you are looking to use this as daily transport for a family, that has got to be a big plus for the A45S. Next up on the list of things that has changed, the gearbox. The old one was just indescribably bad. I didn't understand how Mercedes had got a dual clutch so wrong. But this one, well, it's brilliant. Far more engaging than many a recent sports car that I've driven. Upshifts, delivered quickly with a nice little pop. The engine also doesn't give you the ludicrous amount of pops and bangs that the old one did, and though as a 4-cylinder turbo it was never likely to sound brilliant, I think they've done a fairly decent job, and it certainly feels far less boy racer than the old car. Helping make it a more suitable motorway mile muncher, it also has an extra ratio too, this one now packing 8 as opposed to the old car's 7. Like that, it also has standard fit all-wheel drive. That's the 4MATIC Plus of the title, and it works very, very well. Grip levels are excellent, and as when you do begin to find the limits of them, as I did a little bit yesterday when things were much slipperier, it moves the power around fairly naturally, and it all feels very, very reassuring. It's a good, decent car, this. But not a perfect one, and it still has a few character flaws. First of which is that engine. Get it on the boil, get it over about 3,500 RPM, and it's quite exciting. Pulls fairly strongly all the way to the red line, though it does have a soft limiter just towards the end, which kind of kills a little bit of your fun. But you cannot criticise its enthusiasm. I can, though, criticise the turbo lag, which again isn't terrible. Not as bad as, say, the DB12 that I drove the other day. Not sure what that car's excuse was. However, when you are off the boil and you want to make a nice gentle overtake, well, really, you need to have the car in an automatic mode for it to change down 3 or 4 gears, and then you can do it. If you want to just ride the low down torque that you might be used to in other turbo cars, it's not there. For example, I am now in 4th gear doing 50 kph, that's about 30 mile an hour, at 2,000 RPM. I'm going to put my foot flat, that's 60 kph, 70 mile, and there you go, 3.5 comes alive. But below that, it's not got much. But that's fine, because this gearbox is a delight, and the paddles, they're really nice. They're not particularly large, but they are metal, and they've got a beautiful action to them. Mercedes, they've done well with this. It is weirdly the downshifts that on occasion can take just a little longer to be actioned than you would like, but you soon get into the rhythm with that. And this car does tie together the corners in a very effective fashion. Sadly though, there are still a few issues carried over from the old car, one of which is the steering. And though Mercedes say they've made improvements by solidly mounting the power steering elements to the rack or something like that, it's just limp and lifeless. The weighting can change every now and again, and I think with the different modes, but no matter which one you're in, it just doesn't do much. The turn-in is nice enough, not the keenest, not the quickest, but it suits the car very, very well. However, there is little to no feedback from it, well, ever. And that's a shame, because this really is an area where a hot hatch should shine. That gives you that level of confidence to really press on with the chassis, and this car, it simply doesn't have it. Next up, and this is something I've not been able to test too effectively here, the suspension. Even in comfort mode, I can tell this is still a relatively firm riding car. Is it quite as bad as the old one? Well, I couldn't tell you in any honesty, because it's been a long time since I drove one of those, and these are very, very different roads to British ones. They're incredibly smooth, but even so, you can feel it's a firm thing. In Sport and Sport Plus, even on this immaculate billiard table tarmac, it's a bit too much, and you can feel the chassis on occasion being unsettled. Perhaps most frustratingly though, despite the fact it feels like a nice upmarket cabin, it doesn't sound like one. This car is filled with creaks, rattles and squeaks in just about every corner of it. This door has been rattling, that door has been rattling, and there's a few real amateur schoolboy errors that Merc have made. This morning the car was making a terrible racket, and I found out it was this. That's the seatbelt buckle from the passenger seat. This thing. Look at the size of that. That's massive, and it sits next to. Listen to that. That's horrible, isn't it? So this thing sits over here, and if you haven't got it clipped in, it'll just do that all the time. How did no one at Mercedes notice that and go, oh, maybe we should put some fabric here or something just to keep that out of the way? It's terrible. The back, the parcel shelf, the seats, they're rattling too. And it would appear these cars also have a few reliability issues of their own. So Paul has only just got this back from the Mercedes garage. We in fact went to go and pick it up yesterday. It was there because it had an issue where whenever he put his foot down, it blew its oil cap off, which is not good. And they said, yeah, sure, we can fix it. It'll be about 1,800 euros. So he said, yeah, 1,800 euros, fine, not a problem, fix it. They called him, said, yep, the car is fixed. He went to go and pick it up and was handed the bill, 3,500 euros. And now what exactly they've done, I don't know, because it was in Catalan, but I'm going to make an educated guess. If it was blowing its cap off, there's a pressure issue, isn't there, of some description. Maybe a breather block, something like that. I don't know these engines. I do know that this M139 is an evolution of the old M133, which in of itself is still a hotted up version of the regular engine, the M260 or M270. They have, however, done quite a bit of work. In fact, the whole thing is rotated 180 degrees for optimum airflow, so it is fairly bespoke. And my understanding is that these have certainly proven to be more durable than the unit in the A35. That really is a regular car where they've just turned it up to 12 and it can't take it. This is already dialed up to 11, and if it's anything like the old A45, my advice, if you've got one of these, don't mod it. They're already making 420 horsepower from 2 litres and 4 cylinders. If you want more than that, just buy a bloomin' E63 or something. This corner here is quite wide, so I can chuck the car into it. Yeah, lovely, lovely balance this. It's just a shame that the engine is still a little bit laggy low down, because when you feel the car's able to hook up and fire out of the bend, it's just not ready. And of course, on this road, I want the precision. I want to be able to get the car to do exactly what I tell it, and I can't. All in though, while still a flawed beastie, I have to say it now feels more like a characterful but flawed beastie, as opposed to the old one, which was just a shit car. Thing is though, in just about any hot hatch worth its stripes, this should be the sort of road where when I've turned the cameras off, I have another go, because I should be having the time of my life. And in this, I'm not. And for £60,000, that's a pretty damning conclusion. Good news though, that you don't have to pay £60,000 to get one of these anymore. You can in fact now have an earlier one for more like £30,000. And at that price, if you're into the whole hot hatch thing, and you don't mind the aero kit, which most of them seem to have, it is a lot of car. So there we have it, better late than never. That is my review of the Mercedes-Benz AMG A45S 4MATIC Plus. I would like to say a big thank you to Paul for hosting me here and also lending me a few of his cars. And as ever, to you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.